We have some breaking news ahead of Donald Trump's meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other European leaders later today. And that is that Trump is publicly panicking as he faces ever-mounting backlash over his disastrous summit with Putin in Alaska. This panic manifested in a series of unhinged Truth Social rants in which he attacked the media, attacked Democrats, and even put pressure on Zelensky to save his ass for failing to put Putin in check, as he swore he would be able to do in 24 hours after becoming president. He's panicking, he's feeling the pressure, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends. First and foremost, I want to remind you, Donald Trump repeatedly in 2023 and 2024 promised that within 24 hours of becoming president, should he win the election, which of course he did, that he would snap his fingers and end the war between Russia and Ukraine. He failed. This war has waged for like 208, 209 days on Trump's watch, which means objectively, Trump failed. The summit, which we discussed repeatedly in multiple videos over the weekend, was an even more spectacular failure that even Fox News reporters recognized at the time. Putin ran roughshod over Trump. He steamrolled Trump. He seemed to get everything he wanted, and Trump basically left in disgrace. It was embarrassing, okay? The pressure and the panic are setting in. As Mediaite notes, Trump absolutely melts down at critics of Alaska summit in late-night barrage, throwing Zelensky a blunt signal hours before meeting. Donald Trump unloaded Sunday night in a frenzy on Truth Social, blasting personal insults and rage posting about criticism of his Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin, just hours before he's set to host Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. With Zelensky in a European team that includes, among others, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz preparing to travel to the U.S., the president was still stewing over negative coverage of his Putin meeting as political opponents and media analysts, again including Fox News, spent Sunday panning his abandonment of ceasefire demands. Trump started with an attack on the fake news media, whom he fumed had framed his summit as a major defeat, rebuking critics of the summit as sick. The post segued into a defense of his record on crime in D.C. and claims he had now secured the southern border. So this is the first rant. The fake news has been saying for 3 days that I suffered a major defeat by allowing Vladimir Putin of Russia to have a major summit in the United States. Actually, he would have loved doing the meeting anywhere else but the United States, and the fake news knows this. It was a major point of contention. If we had the summit elsewhere, the Democrat-run and controlled media would have said what a terrible thing that was. These people are sick. They even want crime in D.C. and other blue cities throughout our country. But don't worry, I won't let that happen. Just like our now secure southern border, 0 illegals in the last 3 months, our cities will be secure and safe, and D.C. will lead the way. So again, a couple of things to note: that crime in red states and under at least some Republican-controlled cities, crime is actually higher than it is in D.C. D.C. does have a crime issue, but it's actually at a 50-year low. Crime was on the decline under President Biden and under Donald Trump. And yet Trump used this as an excuse to deploy the D.C. National Guard, which, by the way, he should have done on January 6, 2021, when he sat on his fat orange ass and watched his own violent insurrectionists storm the Capitol to try to murder politicians and overthrow the government. Interesting how he hesitated and did not deploy the Guard there, but is deploying the Guard overzealously here in D.C. now. So he's ranting about the fake news. From there, Trump zeroed in on Senator Chris Murphy, who had called the summit an embarrassment in a Sunday interview with host Kristen Welker on NBC's Meet the Press. In the same post, Trump also rounded on his ex-national security advisor, John Bolton, who told CNN Putin had, quote, won the summit. Trump called both men, quote, stupid, and added that turning up in Alaska was, quote, very hard for his Russian counterpart. Okay. The very unattractive, both inside and out, senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy, said Putin got everything he wanted. Actually, quote, nobody got anything too soon, but getting close. So Trump again, Trump right there. Did you catch that? Donald Trump is admitting that he got nothing from that summit in Alaska with Putin. Mr. Dealmaker, Mr. Art of the Deal, Mr. Master Negotiator. I also want to be clear. Is it possible that Trump will either happen upon a peace deal or ceasefire with Zelensky and Putin somewhere down the road, perhaps even today? Perhaps. Is it even possible that Trump will meaningfully contribute in some way to that getting done? Yes, I am not ruling out that a ceasefire or a peace deal will happen. It's entirely possible it does, but Trump promised that he would get it done in 24 hours. He failed. He has failed up to this point. He may continue to fail today, and he promised he'd get it done in 24 hours. And he also promised in advance of this Alaska summit major progress. He said he would, if he left without a ceasefire, he'd be angry. And then he tried to spin his defeat in a Fox News interview after the fact But even here, he's admitting nobody got anything. It was a failure then, Donald. Murphy is a lightweight who thinks that it made the Russian president look good in coming to America. Actually, it was very hard for President Putin to do so. The war can be ended now, but stupid people like Chris Murphy, John Bolton, and others make it much harder to do so. And we're actually going to play some clips of Chris Murphy at the end to see what triggered Donald Trump so utterly. Next, Trump managed to level a broadside at former President Barack Obama while sending a blunt signal to Zelensky that he could end the war with Russia almost immediately. Trump didn't detail how, but Putin's Alaska summit demands of territorial concessions, and the White House abandonment of a ceasefire arrangement may serve as an indication. President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. Remember how it started. No getting back Obama given Crimea 12 years ago without a shot being fired, and no going into NATO by Ukraine. Some things never change. Well, again, it's not like Ukraine started a war to try to reclaim Crimea, number one. Number two, there was no deal to get Ukraine into NATO. None. No arrangements. What they wanted to do was start trade with their European allies. That's it. There was no effort, no serious effort at all at any point to get Ukraine into NATO. So again, these like red lines that Trump is creating, they were never crossed. Looking ahead to Monday's White House meeting with Zelensky and European leaders, Trump added, "Big day at the White House tomorrow. Never had so many leaders at one time. My great honor to host them." But in a follow-up post, he put the boot to the media one last time. "The fake news will say it's a big loss for Trump to host so many European leaders at our beautiful White House. Actually, it's a great honor for America." No, nobody's going to say that simply having European leaders at a diplomatic summit at the White House is bad. Nobody believes that. He's just an idiot because he can't handle good faith criticism of himself. The scattershot tirade soon veered into praise for himself. "1 year ago, the United States was almost a dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, the envy of all. What a difference a president makes. The economy is actually objectively worse under Donald Trump than it was under President Biden." Then he saw some feedback from followers on his new patriotic decor. "Did the American flags I put up on both entrances of the White House look fantastic or what? Wow, what a difference. President DJT." His account then fell silent. So again, I want to be clear. It's entirely possible that Trump squeaks a deal today or that a deal happens on Trump's watch today. All of that is possible. But it's not what Trump promised. Trump promised a peace deal in 24 hours, and he's getting desperate. He's feeling the pressure. He's feeling the panic after that disastrous summit. So let's play a couple of clips of Senator Chris Murphy, Democratic senator whom Trump targeted because he triggered Trump.
Heard my conversation with Secretary Rubio. We specifically started talking about the fact that President Trump initially said he wanted a ceasefire agreement. Now he wants a broader peace deal. Secretary Rubio defending that approach, basically saying the Russians wouldn't agree to a ceasefire. Do you think that it's the right strategy to now focus on that broader peace deal?
That meeting was a disaster. It was an embarrassment for the United States. It was a failure. Putin got everything he wanted. I mean, first of all, he wanted that photo op, right? He wanted to be absolved of his war crimes in front of the world. He was invited to the United States. War criminals are not normally invited to the United States of America. He is intentionally murdering civilians. He's kidnapping children. And now he got to stand next to the president of the United States, legitimized in the view of the world. Second, he didn't have to give up anything, nothing. Right? President Trump said he wanted a ceasefire. It appears the ceasefire wasn't even seriously discussed. And then third, there's no consequences. Trump said, if I don't get a ceasefire, Putin's going to pay a price. And then he walked out of that meeting saying, I didn't get a ceasefire. I didn't get a peace deal. And I'm not even considering sanctions. You heard Secretary Rubio downplay sanctions. And so Putin walks away with his photo op with zero commitments made and zero consequences. What a great day for Russia.
It's objectively true. To the extent that there were any winners at the summit, it was objectively not Trump. And again, that's not to say that Trump won't secure a ceasefire or a peace deal down the road. I don't think he will because he has previously failed so epically. But it's not like I have a crystal ball. It's not predetermined. But Trump is just upset because people are right. Again, Fox News complained about the summit. When you lose Fox News, you've lost the plot, especially if you're a Republican. I want to play some other clips of Chris Murphy.
What about the argument that you heard Secretary Rubio make, which is he said he doesn't think that sanctions would make a difference in terms of forcing a ceasefire agreement? Does he have a point? I mean, after all, we have seen President Putin continue this war, dropping bombs relentlessly, despite the fact that there have been all of these sanctions imposed against him.
So He is right that sanctions have not had any practical impact thus far. But that is in part because our sanctions are directly levied on Russia. And there's very limited economic relationship between the United States and Russia. These next sanctions that we're talking about, that Congress is considering authorizing, are actually secondary sanctions, sanctions that would make it hard for Russia to continue to do business with countries like China and India, who are essentially funding the war. So this next set of sanctions could be much more impactful. The problem is, in the Senate, the Republican leader won't even bring up a vote, a debate on this bill, because Donald Trump doesn't even want a discussion about these sanctions because he's so worried that it might upset his great friend Vladimir Putin. What is most impactful and what will be most impactful on this war are more weapons for Ukraine. And here's where Putin has the upper hand. So long as Trump is still opposed to continuing to arm Ukraine, Putin knows that it is just a matter of time before he can gain the advantage. So Putin walks away from the summit with no economic sanctions, with no sense that Trump is going to continue to send weapons to Ukraine, and essentially a green light to continue the war on his terms.
And I will note that the war has escalated on Trump's watch. The bombing, the aggression from Russia against Ukraine has skyrocketed since Trump won the election, and then even more so after he was inaugurated. So again, it just belies the proposition that Putin is intimidated by Trump, because you would think he would want to wind the war down. He would be less aggressive, less militant, and all the data show everything to the opposite. One last clip from Senator Chris Murphy.
Trump was asked what his message will be to President Zelensky on Monday. He said to make a deal. What is your message to President Zelensky heading into these high-stake talks tomorrow?
Well, I mean, listen, I would love to tell him that there is still a bipartisan consensus to support Ukraine in the United States Senate. But as I mentioned to you, we actually have a very tough sanctions bill that gives the president the ability to levy these new sanctions against Russia. But the Senate leadership won't even bring it up for a vote. Why? Because in the Congress, the Republicans essentially work for President Trump. And if President Trump tells them that his #1 priority is to keep Vladimir Putin happy, not to actually levy the kind of sanctions that would create a realistic negotiating table, Senate Republicans are going to listen. So this is a really dangerous moment because Senate Republicans, House Republicans are not willing to support Ukraine if Donald Trump won't give them the green light. And as you saw coming out of that summit, it seems that Trump's #1 priority is just keeping his friend Vladimir Putin happy.
Again, I think these are perfectly rare or perfectly fair criticisms by Murphy against Donald Trump, for which Trump has no substantive refutation. Again, we're not precluding the possibility that Trump won't succeed in the future. He could succeed today. It's entirely possible. But so far, it has been an objective failure. And Trump just gets triggered about people pointing out the facts. So there you have it. We'll see what happens later on today. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.